Close your eyes. Now imagine waking up thousands of years ago, not as a ruler, not as a hero from the stories, but as a child, small, unknown, powerless. Your bed is a woven mat on a cold stone floor. Your pillow, just a folded piece of cloth. Before the sun even rises, you're already awake, because your chores don't wait. You don't know what sugar tastes like. You've never seen a book, and you have no idea that childhood could be anything more than silence, discipline, and duty. In ancient Greece, being a child didn't mean being protected. It meant being shaped into a soldier, a wife, a servant of the family's honor. Sometimes a child was even a sacrifice to the gods, to tradition, to war. This wasn't the world of marble statues and golden temples you've seen in paintings. It was a world of cracked feet, empty stomachs, and hollow eyes. A place where stories were born, but no one told yours. So get comfortable, let your thoughts drift, and let me take you back into the forgotten life you might have lived. As a child in ancient Greece, you're not born with a name. You're born with an expectation. In ancient Greece, a child's identity was never entirely their own. Before you even open your eyes to the world, your fate is already being shaped by ghosts, by the weight of family memory, by the echo of names whispered across generations. You are not just a child. You are a vessel, a living continuation of someone who once lived and someone whom others still remember. Your parents don't name you after stars or virtues. They name you after someone who has died. The custom is firm and near universal across the Greek world, though it takes slightly different forms from Athens to Sparta. In Athens, your name often honors your paternal grandfather. If you're a boy, you might be called Leonidas, after the old man who fought in a long-forgotten war. If you're a girl, perhaps you're named Myrto, after your father's mother, who died giving birth to your father. This isn't sentiment, it's duty. The dead must be remembered, and children are the thread by which memory stays stitched to the world. But there's more to this naming than just tribute. In some regions, names are given only after a waiting period. Your birth isn't even formally acknowledged in public until after 10 days. There's a reason for that. Many children die before their names are ever spoken aloud. Infant mortality is common, painfully, tragically common. Some babies don't survive the night. Others don't last the week. Illness, weakness, deformity, anything that might threaten your survival could also threaten your chance at being named. To name you before your survival is certain is to tempt heartbreak. And so your parents wait. On the 7th or 10th day, depending on the local custom, they hold a ceremony. In Athens, it's thus called the Amphidromia, a quiet but deeply symbolic event where the father walks around the hearth, with you in his arms, introducing you to the household gods, presenting you to the spirits of the ancestors. You are made official. You are welcomed into the oikos, the household, the family line. You are now a recognized being in the eyes of the community, the gods, and the dead. And the name you receive? It binds you not just to life, but to the expectations of those who carried it before you. From that moment on, your life is less about becoming and more about continuing. You must be worthy of the name you bear. You must live in a way that does not shame the legacy you carry. Your family's honor is not a vague concept. It's a set of invisible weights pressing down on your every action. If your namesake was a merchant, you're expected to be clever. If he was a warrior, you must be brave. If she was known for her piety, then even as a child, you are led to the temple steps with offerings in hand. But names do something else too. They confuse the boundary between you and the dead. Imagine growing up and being told that your laugh sounds just like your grandfather's, that your stubbornness comes from your uncle, that you even sleep the way your namesake once did, curled like a comma on the side. Every praise, every correction, every expectation links you to someone whose face you've never seen, whose voice you've never heard. You become a haunted mirror. Your reflection belongs to someone else. You may ask, did anyone resist this? Not really. In a culture that prized family lineage, memory, and civic duty above personal ambition, resistance wasn't expected. It was unthinkable. The family came first. The polis, the city, came second. The self came last. This was true even for the gods. You learned early that the gods favored those who respected their ancestors. You made sacrifices not just for your own sake, but on behalf of the entire family line. During the Anthesteria, a festival to honor Dionysus and the dead, you'd walk among solemn adults who placed offerings for the deceased in tiny pots, whispering names into the air. It was said that the spirits would return briefly during those days. You were taught to leave your door slightly open, just in case. And you, as a child, bore the responsibility to remember, or at least to pretend to. Even if you didn't understand who your namesake truly was, even if the stories felt more like myths than memories, it didn't matter. What mattered was that you never forgot the name. Your own name. Their name. This inheritance of identity also shaped how others saw you. You weren't a blank slate. If your father's brother was known for his dishonor, for cowardice in battle, for betraying his deme, then some of that stain clung to you. A name could be a blessing, but it could also be a curse. Some families were known by what their ancestors had done, good or bad, and to escape that was nearly impossible. Now, consider this. You're a girl. Your naming follows the same logic, but your future is even more restricted. You are named after your grandmother, but you are never supposed to surpass her. Your role is to emulate, to obey, to marry well. You are the quiet continuation of a woman remembered for her loyalty, modesty, and silence. No one expects you to outshine her. In fact, they hope you don't. In Sparta, things are different, but not easier. Spartan girls may receive slightly more freedom, more physical training, more respect as future mothers of warriors. But even here, names carry weight. A boy named after a warrior is expected to be one. A girl named after a fierce matron may be expected to birth sons who don the flinch at death. To be a child in ancient Greece is to live in the shadow of your name. And the name is just the beginning. Soon you learn to recite your father's lineage by heart. Not because it's fun, because it's essential. Identity is everything. Citizenship, inheritance, even marriage prospects depend on your ancestry being unbroken and provable. You learn who your grandfather was, and his father, and his. You don't think of yourself as an individual. You think of yourself as a point on a long chain, stretching backward through time. There is no you without them. And yet, paradoxically, this system offers a strange kind of immortality. If you live well, if you make your family proud, if your deeds are noble, then perhaps one day you will be the name passed down. You'll be the memory carried forward, the name spoken during the amphidromia, the one who is not forgotten. But there is no guarantee. You might die in childhood. In fact, many do. In some Greek regions, up to half of all children never reach adulthood. A fever, a wound, a winter too harsh. And if you die young, your name might vanish again. Quickly, quietly. Your identity absorbed back into the soil. Your brief echo barely heard. Another name will take your place. In this world, being named isn't just about being seen. It's about being used. You are a continuation. You are a placeholder. You are not your own beginning. You are someone else's afterward. And yet, even in this cycle, there's a strange beauty. Your name is your connection to something larger, to a story older than you. You might never be famous, never make a mark on history, but through your name, you become part of the long tapestry of the polis, of the oikos, of Greece itself. You are a stitch in the pattern, a soft, small thread, but necessary. You live your childhood never asking who you are, but always knowing whose you are. And if, somehow, you live long enough to name your own child, you already know what you'll call them. The first thing you ever hold in your hand, apart from a parent's finger or a swaddling cloth, is probably a rock. Not a carved one, not polished, just a rock. And not because your family is especially poor, though many are, but because that's simply what children have. Toys aren't things bought in marketplaces or crafted with love by skilled artisans. They're scavenged, found, sometimes stolen. The streets of your village or city-state are strewn with objects that could become something else in the hands of a child. A stone becomes a soldier. A stick becomes a sword. Dirt becomes dough. The imagination, for all its limitations, is your most lavish gift. If you're lucky, very lucky, you might get something better. A wooden doll, hand-carved by your father, if he has the time or the skill. Not painted, not jointed. Just a simple human form, with maybe a scrap of cloth tied around it like a robe. A plangon. These are often given to girls, though there are no strict rules. Some are passed down from older siblings or made by older children for their younger ones. But most days, the world is your toy. You and your friends, a ragged barefoot cluster of noisy dirt-smeared children, roam the narrow alleys between stone houses, kicking at broken tiles, tracing patterns in dust, throwing pebbles at sunbathing cats, and dodging the angry yells of shopkeepers. You might play a game of ephedrusmos, balancing on one leg while throwing a stone at a target, or aperaxis, where you try to bounce a ball as many times as possible without losing control. Though again, ball might mean a lump of old wool wound into a tight, matted clump. Your playground isn't a park. It's a construction zone of life. The Agra, the central marketplace, is full of feet and carts and haggling and arguments, and you learn to move through it like a rat. The streets are rough and sun-blistered, and sandals are a rare luxury, especially for children. Most of the time, your feet are bare, your knees scraped, your hands calloused from climbing walls and scrambling over rooftops. Play is not separate from hardship. It is hardship disguised as fun. You might dig in the dirt to build little temples to the gods, stacking pebbles into tiny columns. You might reenact battles, not just from imagination, but from memory, because you've already seen real ones. Warriors returning home from the front line, fathers with fresh scars. Stories of blood and valor are not fantasy here. They're daily life. Sometimes your games mimic your future roles. Boys pretend to be soldiers or wrestlers. They spar with sticks and take turns dying dramatic deaths in the dust. Girls pretend to be wives, carrying pretend babies on their hips, grinding pretend grain, organizing imaginary feasts. No one tells you to play this way. It's just what's done. You imitate what you see, and what you see is always serious, even if it's softened by routine. If you're a girl, you might own a Kotabos cup, not for drinking, but for a grown-up game you've heard the adults play at parties. You'll fill it with water and try to flick the liquid toward a target, mimicking the wine-sloshing flirtations of the symposia, even though you barely understand them. The adults laugh when they see you playing it, but they don't stop you. After all, you're being trained to join their world, eventually, just with smaller tools. For some, toys serve a deeper spiritual function. When girls reach adolescence, it's common to dedicate childhood toys to a deity. A plangon doll might be placed at the feet of Artemis, goddess of the hunt and of young women, marking the transition from girlhood to womanhood. This isn't symbolic, it's sacred. Childhood doesn't drift away in ancient Greece. It is sacrificed, let go of, given back. But until that moment, you're allowed, encouraged, even to live chaotically, loudly, messily. The ancient Greeks had a surprisingly lenient attitude toward young children. Until a certain age, you were considered wild, impulsive, even animalistic, but not shamefully so. Just naturally. Philosophers like Plato and Aristotle wrote about childhood as a time of disorder, of irrationality, of appetite. You weren't expected to be reasonable. You were expected to be trainable. So your play was tolerated, even if sometimes it earned a swat or a scolding. It was understood that children needed movement, noise, even violence. And so, yes, you throw rocks. At each other, at nothing, into the sea. You throw them because there is no playground, no fenced-off, cushioned space designed for safety. There are only rocks and streets and other children, and the games you invent are your first lessons in power, in danger, in restraint. You learn quickly that a badly thrown rock might break a tooth or split a lip. That play and pain are neighbors. And sometimes your play turns into real injury. But rarely does anyone come running. There are no bandages waiting, no antiseptic, no protective hover. If you cry, the older children roll their eyes. If you bleed, you're expected to go home and stop bothering the others. And if you limp back to your mother, she might sigh, wash the wound with vinegar, and send you right back out. Childhood is not gentle here. It is not a protected category. It is a phase, quick, fragile, and fully immersed in the adult world. Even chores are part of your play. If your family owns animals, you help herd them. If you live near the port, you carry baskets for merchants or run messages for sailors. If your father is a potter, you might mold scraps of clay into tiny pots of your own, not as a game, but as practice. Everything you do as a child is a prelude to something else, to duty, to gender roles, to religion, to war. You are allowed to play, but not to wander far. Not because of stranger danger. Kidnapping, while real, isn't common. It's more about reputation. Children are the faces of the household, and if you're seen loitering where you shouldn't, mocking elders, or being too bold with strangers, it brings shame, especially for girls. Still, you find pockets of freedom. You sneak into olive groves and race through fields. You lie on sun-warmed stones and trace shapes in the clods. You huddle in corners with a friend and whisper secrets about the gods, or the strange things your parents said in anger the night before. You learn how to curse, how to spit, how to climb, how to disappear when chores are being handed out. And through it all, your first toy, your stone, remains close. It sits in your hand like a secret, like a promise, cold and smooth or jagged and coarse. It is your companion when no one else wants to play, your weapon when someone mocks your family, your tool when you're building a world of your own. You might lose it and find another. You might give it away and take it back. But for a while, it is yours. One of the only things in your childhood that feels fully so. As you get older, you may find yourself outgrowing the old games. The boys are expected to train. The girls are expected to help with weaving, with the kitchen, with younger siblings. But the memories of stone and stick, of scraped knees and dirty hands, will stay. Because in a world with little softness, those moments of rough, wild play are where joy survives. And sometimes, when you're grown, and walking past the Agra on a hot afternoon, you'll hear the clatter of pebbles, or the laughter of a child pretending to fight a monster with a splintered stick. And for a moment, you'll remember. Your first toy wasn't made by hands. It was made by earth. 12. That's the age when a line is drawn. When the games end. When the soft freedom of girlhood is stripped away and replaced with cloth veils, hushed voices, and responsibilities you never asked for. In ancient Greece, particularly in places like Athens, to be a girl meant being born with an expiration date on your childhood. The very society that gave the world democracy, philosophy, and epic poetry gave girls a different kind of inheritance: silence, obedience, and early duty. Until 12, there is some illusion of freedom. You may have played in the courtyard with siblings, or giggled while collecting water from the family well. You might have snuck bread dough from your mother's bowl, or learned to hum the songs sung at weddings. You listened as women talked of babies and husbands, not fully understanding, but feeling a strange pull in your chest, part curiosity, part dread, because even at 6 or 7, you know that one day the talking will be about you. And then it happens. Your body begins to change. There's no celebration, only caution. Your mother notices first. She pulls you aside, wraps you tighter in your himation. She begins to speak differently. Her instructions sharpen. Her voice lowers. She tells you to stop running, stop laughing too loud, stay indoors more often. You're told to be careful who sees you, who hears you, because now you're not just a girl. You're a reputation, a future wife, a potential mother, a social contract waiting to be sealed. By 12, many girls are already betrothed. The arrangement is made between fathers, sometimes when you're still a toddler. A handshake, a dowry, a promise. You have no say. You may not even know his name until months before the ceremony. He could be 20 years older. He probably is. Maybe he's a friend of your father's. Maybe he's a stranger from another village. Either way, he's your husband now, or he will be as soon as your next birthday comes. From this point on, your world shrinks. You're no longer allowed to wander the home freely when male guests arrive. You're trained to stay out of sight behind veils or doors. In some wealthier homes, there is a separate part of the house, the gyneconitis, where women and girls are expected to remain. You learn to live in the background. Your world becomes shadows and walls, the quiet corner of a loud household. Your education, if it ever existed, ends. Boys are taught philosophy and rhetoric, sent to the gymnasium to train their minds and bodies. You are taught how to weave, to sew, to make olive oil last through winter. Your mother shows you how to scrub the family altar, how to whisper prayers to Hera or Artemis. Your instruction now is religious, domestic, and deeply silent. Even your posture changes. You walk with your head bowed. Your voice softens, pitched lower, so it won't carry through the house. You speak only when asked. Laughter becomes dangerous, a signal of looseness, of disrespect. Every action is scrutinized. Every movement becomes a rehearsal for life under another man's roof. Marriage doesn't wait for adulthood. In Athens, you could be married by 13. Sometimes earlier. Your husband will be at least in his 20s, if not older. He's lived in the world. You haven't. He'll have mistresses, if he's wealthy. And you, his new bride, are expected to run his household, bear his children, and uphold his honor without faltering. You don't get a honeymoon. You're taken from your home during a multi-day wedding ritual. The procession might be filled with song and torchlight, but behind your veil, you're trembling. Once you step over the threshold of your husband's house, you no longer considered a child, even if your body hasn't caught up with the title. You must now perform as a woman, a wife, a future mother. But you've never even kissed someone before. You've barely understood what sex is. Now it's your duty. And your mother isn't coming with you. The matronly advice you receive is whispered on the night before your wedding. It might be vague. It might be terrifying, but it will be final. From now on, any shame, any mistake, any misstep, it's yours alone to bear. If you fail to produce a child, it's your fault. If your husband strays, you must not react. If his family disrespects you, you endure. That's the expectation, not because you are weak, but because this is what it means to be a good woman in their eyes. Sometimes, girls die during childbirth. Their small bodies are not ready, but the expectation is unyielding. Producing sons is a civic duty. You are not just birthing for your family. You are birthing for the polis. For Sparta, the state would even encourage girls to train physically so they might produce stronger warrior sons. But even there, the core idea remains. Your worth is tied to your womb. And what if you rebel? What if you speak out, refuse marriage, or demand education? The answer depends on where you live and how rich your father is. In most cases, rebellion is not an option. Girls have no legal independence. You cannot own property. You cannot vote. You are forever under the guardianship of a male relative, father, husband, or son. Even your presence in society is carefully managed. Public life is for men. The theater, the courts, the assemblies. These are places where your existence is tolerated at best and forbidden at worst. There are exceptions, rare ones. In Sparta, girls are encouraged to be strong, even outspoken. They can inherit land. They are educated. But even then, their lives are built around a single purpose, motherhood. Spartan girls are raised not to be citizens, but to birth citizens. And even this relative empowerment comes with strings. You may have heard of powerful women in Greek myth, of Athena, the wise goddess, or Artemis, the huntress. But those are ideals, not realities. The women of your world, the real ones, are mostly unnamed in the records of history. Their lives are not measured in achievements or accolades. They are measured in marriages, in dowries, in how many children they birthed, and how well they remained invisible when needed. The hardest part isn't the work. It's the vanishing. To watch your voice slowly dissolve. To have your thoughts grow quiet because no one is listening. To remember the days when you ran barefoot in the courtyard, screamed at goats, splashed in rain puddles, and to realize that those days are over. That no one will ever call you a girl again. Only wife, only mother. Only widow, maybe, if you outlive the man chosen for you. And yet, somehow, girls survived. They sang lullabies. They carved tiny figures out of wax. They braided each other's hair. In secret corners of sunlit courtyards, they whispered dreams they were never allowed to chase. They found power where they could, in friendships, in motherhood, in stories passed from grandmother to granddaughter. They carried entire households on their shoulders and found grace in their silence. But make no mistake, girlhood in ancient Greece was not a season. It was a hallway you walked through quickly, barefoot, before the door slammed shut behind you forever. Boyhood in ancient Greece is not about exploration. It is not about wonder or wild adventure. It is about preparing to serve your city, your family, your gods. If you're a boy, your name might someday carry weight, but that weight is not your own. It belongs to the generations before you. You are raised not as an individual, but as a vessel. And from the moment you can walk without help, you're being prepared, not for freedom, but for obedience. Your life starts under your mother's watchful eye. Until about age 7, your world is soft. You are loved, often spoiled, sometimes scolded, but rarely feared. You may sit in your father's lap, listen to stories about gods and warriors. You're too young to know that this comfort is temporary. There is no warning, no gentle transition. One day, you're just gone, taken from the women, from the house, and placed into the world of men. This shift is cultural, expected, and absolute. In Athens, you're sent to school. In Sparta, you're sent to war. But no matter where you live, the message is the same. You must learn to obey. Your education begins with silence. You sit cross-legged on the dirt or the stone, under the eyes of a teacher who carries a stick. You're taught to recite, not question, not analyze, just recite. Homer, Hesiod, sacred hymns, laws of Solon. Every line must be perfect, every pause exactly timed. The goal is not understanding, it's control. You're being taught to master yourself, to swallow your thoughts and speak only what's approved. The lessons are physical too. In Sparta, it's brutal. From 7 years old, you enter the agoge, the state's military training system. You live in barracks with other boys, away from your family. You're given 1 cloak per year, no shoes, little food. You're expected to steal to survive, not for rebellion, but as training in cunning. If you're caught, you're beaten. Not for stealing, but for getting caught. The pain is part of the lesson. In other city-states, like Athens, training is less violent, but still rigid. You're taught music and poetry, but not for joy. You learn rhythm so your marching will be unified. You memorize verse so your speech will be controlled. Even the lyre, soft and melodic, becomes a tool for conformity. Nothing is wasted on self-expression. You are not a soul finding its path. You are a citizen being forged. If you speak out of turn, you're hit. If your posture slips, you're corrected, with hands, with barked words, with the silence of disappointment. At home, your father is no gentler. He is your example and your judge. His approval is measured in nods, not words. His hands build, point, discipline. Rarely do they comfort. If you fall behind in your training, it's not just a failure, it's shame. Not only for you, but for him. A Greek man is nothing without his paideia, his education, his discipline, his ability to control his household. If his son is weak, his legacy dies. So you learn to suppress softness. You ignore the stinging when you're slapped across the back for dropping a spear. You learn not to wince when your knees scrape raw from kneeling too long at a temple. You wake before the sun and run drills barefoot. Your meals are measured, your words even more so. Emotions are locked away. Grief is for women. Fear is for slaves. You are taught to keep your chin high and your voice low. This is what it means to be respectable, to be manly. But the fear remains. Quiet, always there. Because ancient Greece is a place of hierarchy. And boys, even future warriors, are still low in that order. Older men hold the power, teachers, generals, priests. You respect them. You fear them. Sometimes they take liberties. A slap, a cuff, a whisper in your ear that makes your stomach tighten. In Sparta and other places, pederasty is institutionalized, not just tolerated, but seen as educational. Older men are encouraged to take boys as companions, mentors, sometimes more. And while some boys find pride in the attention, others feel only dread. But again, obedience. You say nothing. You are taught to endure it all. War games are frequent. At 12, you carry real weapons. At 14, you train with bronze armor. Your arms ache under its weight, but you're expected to hold your shield high, your spear steady. In Sparta, you may be ordered to kill a slave, a helot, as part of your transition into manhood. The goal is to eliminate mercy, to replace innocence with loyalty. They tell you the city comes before all else, even your own life. You begin to understand death early. You see it in the stories. You see it in the training halls. If a boy collapses during a run, the lesson continues. If someone is injured during sparring, they're dragged aside. No one stops, no one weeps. Compassion is for after victory, not before. There are moments of light. You make friends. You laugh in stolen minutes between drills. You learn how to joke with precision, how to test your voice in poetry. You learn the names of constellations, the rituals of your ancestors. You start to admire your father's quiet strength, even as he remains distant. You feel the stirrings of pride when you recite a long verse without error, when you finally throw your javelin straight, when your instructor nods, just once. But these moments are thin, just enough to keep you going, just enough to make you think obedience is worth it, because there's always something next. At 18, you'll become a full citizen, if you're from the right class. You'll serve in the military, vote in the assembly, represent your household in court. your opinions will begin to matter. But until then, they do not. You are a mouth closed in preparation, a body being sculpted, a mind waiting to be trusted. If you fail to meet expectations, you are discarded. In Sparta, boys deemed weak or deformed are left to die on the slopes of Mount Taygetus. In other places, they are hidden, married off to poor girls, given jobs beneath their birth. There is no room for failure in the male system. Either you are useful or you are forgotten. The pressure is immense. You may have no brothers. You may be your father's only son. If you die, the family name dies. If you disgrace yourself, your family carries that shame for generations. Every morning, this weight settles on your shoulders as you bind your sandals, gather your scrolls or spear, and prepare to endure another day. You do not complain. Complaining is dishonor. You do not dream too loudly. Dreams are distractions. You train, you listen, you obey. And somewhere inside, a small voice remains, remembering the days when you ran without purpose, when you asked questions freely, when you fell asleep in your mother's arms. But that voice grows fainter with each passing season, until one day you no longer hear it at all. And that's when they say, "Now you are a man." In ancient Greece, the gods are everywhere. They are not distant beings in the sky or quiet figures in stained glass. They are close. Their presence is physical, carved into marble and etched into clay. They look down at you from temple walls and shrine corners, their eyes unblinking, their lips cold and eternal. You grow up in their shadow, and you do not grow up loving them. You grow up fearing them. As a child, your first stories are not fairy tales. They are myths. But these myths are not soft or sweet. They are brutal and strange. They speak of gods who kill their fathers, who devour their own children, who seduce, deceive, punish, and destroy. Zeus, the king of the gods, is not gentle. He throws lightning when angered. Hera, his queen, is jealous and cruel. Poseidon stirs earthquakes beneath your feet. And Artemis, the goddess of the wild, might strike you down for speaking too loudly in her woods. These are not gods who protect you. They are gods who must be appeased. You hear your mother whisper prayers at dawn, standing before a flickering oil lamp. You see your father pour out wine to the hearth before every meal, eyes downcast, silent, reverent. When your sibling falls ill, your parents do not just fetch herbs. They make offerings. They slaughter a chicken. They burn barley. They beg. They fear. Because in your world, sickness is not just a failing of the body. It is a message from the divine. Something you did or didn't do has angered someone greater. There is no why without gods. Why did the harvest fail? Demeter is grieving. Why is your neighbor's son blind in one eye? A curse from Hera, perhaps. Why did the storm destroy half the fishing boats? Poseidon was disrespected. In this world, everything has a reason, and that reason is almost always punishment. The temples are magnificent, but they are not comforting. You do not walk into them and feel peace. You feel watched, judged. You remove your shoes. You do not speak. The air is thick with incense and silence. Priests in clean white robes move like ghosts, and in the center, always a statue, larger than life. Cold stone, painted eyes, staring down at you with a gaze that feels real. Sometimes you're brought to the temples when something's wrong, when someone's dying, when a baby won't stop crying. You are told to kneel. You watch your father leave coins at the foot of the altar. You watch your mother tie offerings of cloth or hair to sacred trees. You feel the fear in their silence. It settles into you like dust. You are too young to understand all the rituals, but you understand one thing very early. The gods are not your friends. They are power, and power is to be feared. At festivals, you wear your best tunic. You eat roasted lamb and honey cakes, and you sing hymns with the others. But even in joy, there is fear. The sacrifices are never skipped. You watch as the animal is brought forward, its legs trembling, its eyes wide. The priest murmurs a prayer. The blade flashes. Blood soaks the ground. The smell is sharp and warm. The crowd is silent. Because this is the part that matters. Not the feasting, not the dancing, but the offering. The moment the gods are fed. If the omens are good, the liver clean, the smoke rising straight, then you rejoice. If not, there is unease. Something is wrong. Something must be done. You begin to pray not for blessings, but for mercy. You don't ask for too much. To do so would be greedy, and greed offends the gods. You pray that the flood stays away from your fields, that your sister recovers, that the baby is born safely, that your village is spared. You are taught to keep your requests small, your offerings generous, your tone humble. You are taught that the gods are always listening, and that they remember everything. There is no forgiveness in Greek religion, only balance. If you offend the gods, you do not apologize. You repay. You give back what was taken. You kneel. You burn. You bleed. You do not speak of grace. There is no grace. There is only debt, and the gods collect it with precision. As you grow older, the fear deepens. You learn more stories, and they are darker than before. Arachne, the proud weaver, turned into a spider. Niobe, who bragged about her children, forced to watch them slaughtered. Pentheus, torn apart from mocking the rites of Dionysus. Hubris, they say, the greatest sin. To think you are better, to speak against the gods, to act like you do not need them. You begin to examine yourself constantly. Did you speak too boldly? Were you too slow with your offering? Did you forget to thank Hermes before a journey? The gods are not human, but they remember slights like the pettiest of men. They punish not just the guilty, but entire cities. Earthquakes, fires, plague, you hear the stories. Whole populations wiped out because a king dared to boast. A priest forgot a step in the ritual. A temple was left in disrepair. This is not superstition. This is reality, taught to you from birth, reinforced by elders, cemented in law and myth and custom. Dreams are not just dreams, they are messages. Birds are not just birds, they are signs. A crow flying to the left is a warning. A goat giving birth to twins is an omen. You do not laugh at these things. You do not question them. To doubt is dangerous. Even philosophers tread carefully. Even they offer libations before speaking their minds, because you never know which god might be listening. In Sparta, obedience to the gods is tied directly to survival. If a boy shows arrogance, the punishment is not just personal, it's communal. A soldier who fails to honor Artemis might doom his whole squad. A general who ignores the omens might lead his army to death. Religion is not private. It's political, sacred, binding. In Athens, the gods are part of every contract, every oath. To lie under oath is not just a crime, it is blasphemy. Your words are sacred when sworn by Zeus or Apollo. You are not just answerable to men, but to Olympus, and you believe it. You've seen what happens when people forget. You hear about philosophers, men like Socrates, who speak strangely about the gods. Some say he denied them. Others say he introduced new ones. Either way, he was killed, officially for corrupting youth. But everyone knows it was the gods. He went too far. He made the wrong ones angry, so you keep your beliefs quiet. You nod when the priest says the storm was sent by Zeus. You cross your arms and bow your head when the festival flames are lit. You take no chances. Because even if you doubt, even if a part of you wonders, the cost of being wrong is too great. Even your death belongs to them. If you die at sea, your body is lost to Poseidon. If you die in war, your last breath is whispered to Ares. If you die at home, your spirit must be purified with rituals, offerings, chants, or you will not pass on. You will linger. You will curse. You will suffer. There is no escape. Not in life. Not in death. The gods are the air you breathe and the fear in your gut. You are not raised to love them. You are raised to fear them. And in that fear, you find your place. You do not ask why they are cruel. You only ask, what must I do to keep them satisfied? Because in ancient Greece, a good life is not measured by happiness. It is measured by survival. And survival depends not just on courage or strength or wisdom, but on staying small, staying careful, and always, always fearing the gods. You wake with the sun, as always. No curtains to block the morning light. No soft bedding to cradle you as you rub your eyes. Just straw, a wool blanket, and a stone floor chilled by the night's wind. Your stomach rumbles before your feet even touch the ground. Hunger isn't something you've learned to ignore. It is something you've learned to accept. It greets you like a sibling, follows you like a shadow, and never truly leaves. You're a child in ancient Greece, and the first thing you know, each day, is the absence of food. When it is time for the morning meal, if there is one, you're handed a crust of barley bread, hard, rough, and often days old. Sometimes, if your family has had good luck at the market, or your father brought home something worth bartering, there might be a drizzle of olive oil, maybe a bit of goat cheese. But most days, it's just the bread. You tear it slowly, soaking it in diluted wine to soften the bite. No juice, no milk. Water is often too risky, filled with illness, unfiltered and untreated. So even children are given wine, not to celebrate, but to survive. Barley is your life. It's the grain of the poor. Wheat, with its soft texture and golden color, belongs to the wealthy, to the temples, to the feasts of the elites. But barley, dark, coarse, and bitter, fills the stomachs of most. It's what your mother kneads in the early hours with calloused hands, what your siblings chew without complaint, what your grandmother swears by, despite remembering the rare sweetness of figs from her own youth. Lunch, if it comes at all, isn't a meal. It's a pause, a moment in the courtyard when your chores let up or your studies are done. Again, bread, this time thinner. A flat cake or a dry biscuit crumbled over old wine. Maybe you'll find some olives, maybe not. Maybe someone bartered for lentils, boiled into a mush with garlic and leeks, something warm to fill your belly. But warm doesn't mean comforting. It means edible. There's no kitchen in your home, not like you might imagine today. No stone oven glowing with fire. Just a hearth, open and smoky, where your mother or older sister labors with clay pots and burning wood. If it rains, the smoke chokes the house. If the fire burns low, the meal is raw. And if the fire goes out completely, there is no meal. You've seen figs once this season, small and bruised, clutched tightly in the hands of a boy richer than you. You watched him bite into it with purple juice running down his chin and wondered what it might feel like to eat something sweet without guilt. You've heard of honeyed cakes, of roasted lamb, of fish grilled with herbs, but you've never tasted any of them. Those belong to festival days or the temples, places you observe from the edge, barefoot, with your hands behind your back and your mouth closed. Dinner comes late, often by firelight. It's not a celebration. It's survival. A final chance to calm the ache before sleep. Again, there is bread. Again, there is a pot of something boiled until the vegetables collapse. Lentils if you're lucky. Fava beans if you're not. They cause stomach cramps, and you've learned to eat them slowly. If your father or older brother hunted that week, there might be a sliver of meat, rabbit, maybe, or wild bird. You've seen how little meat it takes to bring a smile to your mother's tired face. Just a scrap, salted and stretched across a flat cake of barley. It's not enough to satisfy, but it's enough to hope. Your hunger isn't just physical, it's emotional. In the Agora, you see the food stalls filled with salted fish, fresh herbs, and cheeses wrapped in fig leaves. But those are for the merchants, the scholars, the priests. You stand at the edge, watching bakers lay out honey-dipped pastries in the early hours, and you dream about taste like others dream about stars. Your mouth waters from the smell of roasted goat as it wafts from temple festivals, but your hands remain empty. You don't ask, you don't beg. You've been taught that dignity, even in hunger, matters. Food in your world isn't about joy. It's about hierarchy. A boy born to a wealthy family might grow strong on nuts, fruits, and sea fish. His skin would glow, and his limbs would fill out early. But you stay small. Narrow shoulders, sharp elbows, hollow cheeks. It's not disease. It's diet. Bread doesn't build strong bones. It simply prevents death. You've learned to savor the little things. A pickled radish, a clove of garlic, a dried fig handed out on a feast day. You've learned that chewing slowly helps stretch a meal, that soaking bread in wine softens it enough to trick your body into thinking it is more than it is. You've even learned to eat the stems of herbs after your mother's done with them. Basil, thyme, mint, their bitterness is better than nothing. But sometimes there is nothing. Droughts hit, storms ruin crops, war comes, trade stops. And when that happens, the barley thins, the lentils rot, and you go to bed on an empty stomach, praying to Apollo or Demeter, or whichever god seems less angry that day. Praying not for abundance, just for enough. You hear the philosophers speak of moderation, of how man should not indulge, how excess is a vice. You want to believe them, but they've never eaten barley cakes 3 times a day, every day of their lives. They've never cried from hunger on a temple step. You understand restraint, not because it's virtuous, but because it's your only option. Your mother sometimes tells stories of better times, when her father brought back salted pork from the harbor, or when a neighbor gifted their family a fish caught on the coast. You listen with wide eyes and an aching stomach, imagining what it would be like to eat without fear of the next meal being smaller, or missing altogether. As you get older, you realize that food is politics, that what ends up on your plate, or doesn't, is decided by landowners, harvests, markets, and war, that your hunger is connected to distant choices you'll never understand, that even the gods don't seem to intervene. On rare occasions, there's a festival, not for you, for the city, for Athena or Dionysus. And on those days you might taste something real. Roasted meat, spiced wine, pastries drizzled with honey, but you're still on the edge. You might be allowed a piece if you stand long enough near the tables, if someone drops something, if your family is lucky or pious enough to be included. But most times, you watch others eat, smiling, laughing, full. Bread remains. It always returns. It defines you. It marks your station. It is your morning and evening, and sometimes your lunch. And when you grow old, if you grow old, you'll pass it down. Your son will chew the same crusts. Your daughter will learn to knead the same dough. And one day, their children will ask why the bread is always barley. And you will say, because that's how we live. You don't dream of feasts anymore. You dream of days when the bread doesn't run out, when the oil stretches farther, when the olives aren't rotten, when hunger fades for a day or two, and the ache behind your ribs turns quiet. But even on those days, you know what's waiting tomorrow. Bread, just bread, again, and always. Your throat begins to ache before the sun sets. It's a dry, scratchy pain, the kind that makes swallowing feel like punishment. You don't tell anyone at first. You've learned not to. A complaint leads to attention, and attention brings fear, not comfort. If your mother notices, she'll press her hand to your forehead, frown at the heat, and tighten her mouth. She's seen fevers steal children before. She's watched a simple cough turn into something final. You try to sleep it off. You pull your wool blanket up to your chin and curl tight against the wall. But the chill in your bones is worse than the cold in the air. The fire is low. The night is long. You toss in silence, staring at the beams above your head, counting breaths that feel heavier with each passing hour. In ancient Greece, there is no such thing as a minor illness. Every cough could be the beginning of the end. By morning, your mother knows. She doesn't ask, she listens. To the rattle in your chest, to the shallow way you breathe. You sit upright against a basket of linens as she mixes something bitter in a clay bowl. Crushed thyme, vinegar, maybe ground myrrh. It smells worse than the sickness itself, but you drink it anyway. Not because you believe it will help, but because she does. There is no doctor in the modern sense, no hospital, no nurse. The closest thing is the healer, an old man who lives near the edge of the village, surrounded by drying herbs and chicken bones. He knows stories more than science, recipes more than remedies. Some swear he can call on the gods. Others say he's just lucky. Either way, you fear him more than the illness that brought you here. Your father lifts you across his shoulders when your legs can't carry you. He doesn't speak. Men don't speak in times like this. They walk, they act, and they hope the gods aren't watching too closely today. When the healer opens his door, the smell of mold and burnt sage floods out. He waves you inside with a hand that's more bone than skin. He looks at your eyes. He listens to your cough. He pokes at the glands in your neck and then steps back like he's seen something he can name. You expect herbs, maybe a salve, maybe that bitter liquid again. But he reaches for a knife. Your humors are out of balance, he says in a voice that sounds like dry leaves. You must bleed. You don't know what humors are, but the knife you understand. They say that inside your body are 4 fluids: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile. Illness, they believe, is the result of these being out of harmony. So to heal, the balance must be restored. And sometimes restoring balance means losing blood. The healer nicks the inside of your arm and lets the red pour into a bowl. You feel dizzy, not better, but the bowl fills anyway. Then comes the ash poultice and a prayer to Apollo. You don't feel safe, but you do feel watched, as though the gods might step in at any moment, if only to see what happens next. On the way home, your fever worsens. The wound from the healer stings under its wrap. You shiver even in the sun. Your mother lays you on a fresh mat of straw, and you spend the next 2 days drifting between sleep and confusion. Your lips dry, your joints ache, sweat soaks your tunic. There are whispers around the house. Grandmother lights incense. Your brother won't look at you. Illness in your world is not a challenge to be beaten. It is a trial to survive. People don't expect cures. They expect outcomes. Some children recover. Others don't. And no one can quite explain why. Maybe the gods were kind. Maybe the air was clean. Maybe it simply wasn't your time. No one says these things aloud. They just wait. You've seen it before. A boy from the next home caught a fever that swelled his face and turned his skin blue. A girl your age scraped her leg, and within a week was gone, her wound black, her breath shallow. One morning, she just stopped waking. And still, people try. They offer honey to the gods. They burn laurel leaves in clay bowls. They carry sick children to the temples of Asclepius and lay them on stone floors, hoping for visions in their sleep, signs of healing in dreams. You once heard of a temple far away where the priests had healing snakes. They let them slither over the bodies of the sick, believing the movement brought life. You don't know if that's true, but even if it is, no snake has ever come near your bedside. just steam from a boiling pot, the sting of herbs on your tongue, and your mother's cracked hands on your forehead. There is no concept of bacteria, no knowledge of viruses. Germs don't exist, only bad air, angry spirits, and the moods of gods. And so, when illness spreads through a home or a village, there is confusion. Accusation, fear. Was it a punishment? A curse? Did someone fail to honor the household gods? Sometimes they blame the wind, the direction it came from, whether it carried illness from the sea or from the mountains. People cover their mouths with cloth. They burn animal fat in the corners of the room. They sleep facing east. Anything to change the outcome, anything to survive. You are lucky. This time, the fever breaks. You wake one morning feeling empty, but not dying. Your mother weeps quietly as she rubs oil into your temples. Your sister brings you a soft piece of bread dipped in broth. It's the best thing you've tasted in weeks. Your limbs ache, and your head feels too large for your body. But you're alive. Some children don't come back. Their mats are rolled up, their names spoken in whispers for a few days, then folded into memory. No burial, like you might imagine. No carved gravestones or cemeteries with flowers. Just a pit, some stones. A name scratched into clay. Sometimes not even that. The body returns to the earth, and the family continues. The fear lingers, though. Every cough makes your mother pause. Every bruise is inspected. You are not strong, not yet, and even strength doesn't guarantee safety. There are no vaccines, no antiseptics, no painkillers. If you break a bone, the healer might set it, or he might not. If it heals crooked, you live with the limp. If it becomes infected, you lose the limb or your life. You've seen boys with missing fingers, girls who've gone blind, men who hobble because a scratch festered in summer. Even childbirth, the very act that brought you into the world, is laced with death. Your mother bore you without a midwife. Just neighbors, boiling water, and hope. She nearly bled out, she once said, and the gods must have smiled that day because she didn't. Not everyone is smiled on. Still, you grow, you heal. You survive one illness, then another. Your body toughens, and your mother begins to relax just a little. You join the others again, running barefoot through the fields, climbing trees with torn tunics, getting dirt in every cut. You don't forget the fever, but you pretend you do, until it comes again. And it always does. There's no peace in health, only the absence of pain. No plan for sickness, only reaction. And no promise that what worked last time will work again. The gods are fickle. The healers are guessing. And your body, so small, so breakable, is the only place you have to live. But somehow, you keep going. Not because you expect to live a long life, but because you were never promised one. You don't remember your first funeral, but it wasn't because you were too young. It was because there have been so many since. By the time your voice is strong enough to call out names in the street, you've already stood beside bodies. You've seen the stillness. You've heard the cries, not just of adults, but of children like you, who are still learning to walk, still learning that life ends. Sometimes the bodies are tiny, swaddled in cloth, carried in arms or baskets. You're told not to look, but you do. Everyone does, because death isn't a secret in ancient Greece. It's a presence. It lives in the alley beside the well. It lurks at the edge of the agora. It walks with your family to the temple. It sits at the same hearth where you eat and sleep. Death is not just something that happens. It's something that waits. Your neighbor's daughter was only 3 when she stopped breathing. One day, she was giggling in the sun with a fig in her hand, and the next, she was being washed by her mother with tears in her hair. No doctor was called. No remedies fetched. Only silence, broken by the ritual, a coin for Charon, a whisper to Hades. and a hope that the underworld will be kinder than this one. You ask your parents what happened. They say, "The gods know." Or maybe they don't answer at all. They simply go back to tending the fire, or patching shoes, or baking the hard bread you'll eat tomorrow. Because life has to continue, even while your mind is full of questions. You're still too young to understand why the body is burned or buried with certain oils, or why women tear their clothes and beat their chests. But you imitate the rituals. You mimic the pain, because it's expected. In your world, grief has a shape, a sound, a series of steps. And even as a child, you learn to perform it. Mourning isn't optional. It's tradition. And tradition is survival. You don't want the dead to return angry. You don't want your home to be haunted. So you light the incense. You bow your head. You act brave. But inside, you're confused. Why do people vanish? Why do siblings disappear in the night? Why do elders speak of babies as if they were gusts of wind? In ancient Greece, the answer is often poetic or religious. The gods needed them, or the fates cut their string, or the child was too pure for this world. You want to believe those things. You try, but a part of you wonders if it's just because life here is hard, dirty, disease-ridden, unpredictable. Sometimes, children die from nothing you can see. A fever that won't leave. A cough that sounds different. Other times, they slip and hit their head on a stone, or they drink bad water, or they eat something the dog licked. And no one has answers. There are no hospitals, no true medicine. Only midwives and herbal women, and men who say they can read dreams. When death comes, it doesn't come with sirens. It comes quietly, like sleep, like forgetting. You notice how some adults walk with sadness that never leaves their shoulders. Your aunt, who lost 3 children. Your uncle, who hasn't spoken a full sentence since his son drowned in the Aegean. Grief here isn't rare. It's stitched into daily life, into songs, into pottery, into prayers. Even toys carry the weight of it. A doll given to a dead girl is buried with her, not passed on. A carved wooden horse might sit on a shrine for years after a boy is gone, untouched. And you, a child yourself, grow up knowing that your playthings could outlive you. Sometimes you imagine your own death, not because you want it, but because it feels close. You know the stories. Icarus fell. Achilles died young. Even Heracles, the strongest of all, burned on a pyre in the end. Heroes die. Children die. It's part of the world. And while that terrifies you, it also prepares you. By the age of 10, you understand that every laugh might be followed by a scream. Every summer might end in mourning. You walk through life like someone crossing a thin bridge over shadow. There are days when death feels far away, when the sun is warm, and your feet run fast, and the figs are sweet, and the water is clear. But even then, someone is always missing. A friend who vanished after illness. A sibling whose name is now spoken only in whispers. A cousin who fell from a roof while chasing a bird. And so you smile cautiously. You don't celebrate too loudly, because joy here is fragile, and you don't want to tempt the gods. The adults sometimes try to protect you from grief. They distract you with stories, with chores, with songs. But nothing truly hides it. Because funerals happen in the open. Because mourning women walk the streets with ash on their arms. Because you see the empty cradles. And so you grow up old, even while you're still small. You learn not to ask too many questions. You learn not to cry too loudly. You learn to endure. When a new baby is born, everyone is happy, but also afraid, because they know what could happen. You see it in your mother's eyes as she holds your new brother. The love is there, but so is the fear. Will he last the year? Will the gods let him live? No one says it aloud, but everyone thinks it. And sometimes you do too. As a child in ancient Greece, you don't get the luxury of innocence. Not really. You grow up in the shadow of mortality. You recite the names of the dead at festivals. You hear poems about warriors falling. You hear your grandmother say that life is just a brief breath before eternity. And whether you believe in the gods or not, you come to believe one thing. You are small. You are fragile. And death walks beside you always. But somehow, you keep going. Because everyone does. You learn to find beauty in small things. The way sunlight hits the wall, the way bread smells when it's fresh, the sound of your friend's laugh even after a funeral. You learn to carry both grief and joy in your chest. You become stronger, even if it's not fair that you have to be. And while you may not understand life yet, you understand enough to keep living it. That, in ancient Greece, is the greatest survival of all. In Sparta, your childhood is unlike anywhere else in ancient Greece. From the moment you can walk, you are no longer just a child, you are a soldier in training. The city-state demands it. Your body will be tested, your spirit hardened, and your will broken and rebuilt again, all before you reach adulthood. Pain is not an accident here. It is a tool, a teacher, and a constant companion. You are expected to endure hunger without complaint, to steal food if you can, and if you get caught, the punishment is not for the theft itself, but for your failure to be stealthy and clever enough to avoid detection. The message is clear. Weakness is unacceptable. Your education begins with physical hardship. You sleep on hard beds, often outdoors, exposed to the cold and rain. Your clothes are coarse and thin, your meals meager. You learn quickly that crying or begging will only bring more pain. Tears mark you as weak, something that cannot be tolerated. Instead, you are trained to bite down on your fear and push forward, to bear suffering without sound. The Spartan elders watch you like hawks, ready to strike at the first sign of weakness or hesitation. This is not just about survival, it's about preparation. You are being forged into a warrior who can withstand battle's horrors without flinching. Every bruise, every hunger pang, every lash of the whip is a lesson drilled into your bones. You learn to walk silently, move quickly, and fight relentlessly. Pain becomes your language and your mentor. You come to understand that endurance is your power, and that weakness will cost you your place in Spartan society, or worse, your life. You are separated from your family early, sent to the Agoge, the Spartan training school, where boys are grouped together and expected to look out for one another, but never to show softness. Friendships are forged in fire and tested by hardship. Even your instructors are merciless, pushing you beyond your limits to break you down and build you back up stronger. There are no holidays, no celebrations of childhood innocence. Your childhood is a relentless exercise in toughness, discipline, and obedience. Fear is a constant companion, but it is never acknowledged. Instead, courage is demanded and celebrated. To hesitate in training is to invite punishment. To show pain is to invite scorn. You learn to hide your struggles, to smile when you are bleeding, to keep marching even when your body begs you to stop. Hunger gnaws at your stomach, but you ignore it, because weakness can mean death in Spartan culture. In Sparta, childhood is not a time for play or learning arts and philosophy. It is a time to become a soldier. You are conditioned to believe that your body is merely a tool to serve the state. Individual desires, feelings, and fears are irrelevant. You exist to fight, to conquer, and to obey. Even the games you play are tests of strength and endurance, not fun. Running, wrestling, and sparring are your lessons. Every activity is designed to teach you to endure pain and discipline your body and mind. The brutality of this life is stark, but it shapes you. You grow tougher, leaner, more resilient. Your senses sharpen. Your reflexes quicken. Your mind becomes sharper, trained to obey orders instantly and without question. But underneath it all is a simmering tension, a fear of failure that never leaves you. You know that one mistake, one moment of weakness, can lead to expulsion from the ranks or worse. The stakes are high, and the price for failure is brutal. You hear stories of boys who didn't survive the training, who froze in fear or broke under the lash. Their fate is exile or death. You watch as your peers are tested, some fall, some rise, but all are changed. Pain is the crucible that defines your coming of age. It teaches you not just to survive, but to dominate. In Sparta, the weak do not endure, and the strong rule. This harsh upbringing shapes who you are. It makes you relentless. It makes you unforgiving. It strips away the soft edges of childhood until all that remains is a warrior ready to serve Sparta with body and soul. And though you may hate it, fear it, and sometimes even wish for a different life, you know there is no other way. Pain is your teacher, endurance your reward, and Sparta is the only world you know. In Athens, childhood takes on a different shape, one carved not by brute strength, but by words, ideas, and public life. If you are a boy, your education begins early with an emphasis on speech, rhetoric, and logic. From the moment you can form sounds, you are taught not only to speak, but to speak well. Your days are filled with lessons in poetry, philosophy, and debate. You recite the works of Homer and other poets, memorizing lines not for mere entertainment, but to train your mind and voice. Reciting before speaking is your daily exercise. It is how you learn to command attention, to persuade an audience, and to carry the weight of democracy on your young shoulders. But this privilege is not shared equally. If you are a girl, your world is far smaller and quieter. Education for you does not involve schools or public forums. Instead, your lessons come in the form of sewing, weaving, and managing the household. Your voice is expected to be soft, your presence contained. While boys speak in the agra and schools, girls are instructed to listen and obey. Their education is largely invisible, confined within the walls of the home. The contrast between the education of boys and girls in Athens is stark, and defining one is shaped to be a citizen, the other a caretaker. For boys, learning to speak well is about more than just conversation. It is about power. In the city that birthed democracy, the ability to argue, to persuade, and to participate in public discourse is a prized skill. Your teachers are stern and demanding. You practice speeches, debates, and recitations every day. You learn the art of persuasion, the rhythm of language, and the power of silence. You understand early that your words can sway votes, form alliances, or destroy reputations. The spoken word is your weapon, and mastering it is your path to influence. This emphasis on rhetoric is not just academic, it is practical. You watch as older men gather in the agra to discuss politics, philosophy, and law. You aspire to join their ranks someday, to speak on behalf of your polis. The ability to command a crowd, to argue your point with logic and passion, is as crucial as any sword in battle. Your childhood is a training ground for citizenship, where speaking well is equated with leading well. Girls, meanwhile, grow up in a quieter, more constrained world. Their education is practical, how to maintain the household, raise children, and keep the family's honor intact. They learn to sew fine garments, prepare food, and manage servants if their family can afford them. Their voices are rarely heard in public. Marriage is their expected destiny, and their value is often measured by their obedience and domestic skill rather than their intellect or speech. While boys train to participate in the democracy, girls are largely excluded from public life. The difference in childhood experiences between boys and girls in Athens shapes the very fabric of the city. Boys are groomed to be citizens, leaders, and thinkers. Girls are prepared to be wives and mothers, supporting roles that are vital but silent. This division creates a society where public debate and decision-making are the domain of men, while women's influence is private and indirect. Despite this, some girls find ways to learn and influence. Stories whisper of women who taught philosophy in secret or ran households that influenced politics behind closed doors. But for most, their education remains confined to the domestic sphere. Their thoughts and opinions, while deeply felt, are rarely voiced in public. For you, as a boy in Athens, education is both a privilege and a responsibility. You feel the weight of expectation to learn, to speak, to lead. Your days are filled with drills of language and logic, preparing you to enter the crowded, noisy world of Athenian politics and philosophy. Your childhood is shaped by the belief that words have power, that a well-turned phrase can change the course of history. But this pressure can be heavy. The fear of failure looms large. If you stumble in speech or thought, you risk losing status, respect, and future opportunity. The stakes are high, and the lessons are tough. You must learn not only what to say, but when to say it, and when to remain silent. The art of conversation in Athens is as much about control as expression. By the time you reach adolescence, you are well on your way to becoming a citizen who can hold his own in the assembly, debate in the courts, and influence the future of the polis. The childhood that seemed so rigorous and demanding is now your foundation for a public life. Speaking before you act is your creed, and mastering language is your path to power. In ancient Greece, especially in many households, your father is more a figure of authority than a source of warmth or affection. He is a distant presence, rarely seen except to enforce rules or demand obedience. Unlike the playful, nurturing image we might imagine, he does not spend time asking about your dreams or listening to your fears. Instead, he remains stoic, a stern guardian of discipline and tradition. His love, if it can be called that, is expressed through expectations, rules, and the strict enforcement of social roles. To him, you are not a child to be coddled, but a future adult whose behavior must be molded to fit the rigid standards of the polis. You may remember fleeting moments when he looks at you with a flash of tenderness, but they are rare. Most interactions are functional commands to be obeyed, tasks to be completed, lessons to be learned. When you misstep, he is swift to punish, not out of cruelty, but because in his eyes, you are being prepared for the harsh realities of life. Discipline is the tool of love. You learn early that the absence of gentle words or embraces does not mean he does not care. It means his way of caring is different, harder, and often cold. Your father's presence is also a reminder of the roles you must assume as you grow. He teaches you what it means to be a man in ancient Greece, not through conversation or advice, but by example. You watch how he carries himself in the marketplace, how he speaks to other men, how he manages his household. You see the distance he keeps from the softer, more emotional aspects of life. To be a man is to be strong, reserved, and in control. Your father expects you to learn this quickly. At times, you might feel the ache of this emotional distance. You watch other children with their fathers and wonder why your own feels like a stranger. You might try to speak, to share your thoughts or feelings, only to be met with silence or a stern reminder that such things are not for boys. In a world where emotions are tightly controlled, vulnerability is a weakness to be hidden, not a bridge to connection. Despite this, your father's role is crucial. He is the link between you and the broader society, the man who will introduce you to the expectations and responsibilities of citizenship. He will teach you about honor, duty, and reputation, the currencies of your world. Through his distance and discipline, he shapes your identity, preparing you to navigate the complex social and political landscape of Athens. You also see the weight he carries, the pressure to maintain his family's honor, to provide, to uphold tradition. His sternness is not just directed at you, but is a reflection of the demands placed upon him by his own father and the society around him. In his silence and severity, there is a story of his own struggles and sacrifices, often hidden behind a mask of toughness. As you grow older, You begin to understand the unspoken bond between you and your father. It is not expressed in words or embraces, but in shared duties, mutual respect, and the knowledge that both of you are part of a larger legacy. You may never hear him say, "I love you," but you see it in the way he ensures your education, your safety, and your place in the world. This emotional distance shapes your own approach to relationships, teaching you lessons about strength, resilience, and the limits of affection. It is a hard lesson, but one that prepares you for the expectations of adult life in ancient Greece. Your father is a stranger, yes, but he is also your first teacher, one whose lessons echo throughout your life. Play in ancient Greece is far from the carefree, endless fun many imagine childhood to be. For you, play is a delicate balance, a momentary escape from the weight of expectations, but always shadowed by the watchful eyes of adults. When you wrestle in the dirt with friends, or race barefoot through the dusty streets, laughter bursts out freely, but it's never without caution. You learn early that fun has limits, and crossing those limits can bring swift consequences. The adults nearby don't just watch, they judge. Every stumble, every bruise, every loud shout is noted, measured, and sometimes punished. Your games are rough and tumble, shaped by the environment and culture around you. Wrestling matches are fierce, not gentle. They test strength and skill more than friendship or fun. Running races aren't just about speed, but endurance and discipline. You play in simple sandals or bare feet, your clothes often dirt-streaked and torn by your efforts. These moments of joy are physical, raw, and sometimes painful. Bruises bloom like badges of honor, and scrapes are common. Yet, even in these small freedoms, you never forget the rules of control. The presence of adults changes the nature of play. Their eyes are never far, their expectations always hanging in the air like a shadow. You're re-allowed to have fun, but only so long as it does not disrupt order or reflect poorly on your family. A loud laugh that draws too much attention, a rough game that ends with too much blood or tears, and suddenly play becomes a serious matter. The punishment may be harsh, a scolding, a cut in privileges, or even a physical reprimand. The message is clear. Children are meant to be seen, not heard, and even their play must fit into the strict social order. This oversight teaches you self-control from an early age. You learn to mask your enthusiasm, to curb your wildness, and to stay within invisible boundaries. You laugh, but you watch your tone. You play, but you stay alert. Every moment is a test of discipline, as much as it is a chance for joy. Fun is allowed, yes, but only when it does not challenge the rigid expectations of adulthood, waiting just beyond your childhood. Play also serves as a subtle form of training. Wrestling and running aren't just games. They build the body and mind you will need for your future roles, whether as a soldier, a citizen, or a leader. The bruises and falls prepare you for hardship. The controlled shouting teaches restraint, and the competitive spirit fuels ambition. In this way, play becomes a rehearsal for the responsibilities you will soon inherit. You also begin to understand that play is a social stage where hierarchy and power are rehearsed and reinforced. Even among children, status matters. You learn who can dominate in a game, who is likely to cause trouble, and who the leaders are. These dynamics mirror the adult world, teaching you early lessons about authority, loyalty, and rivalry. Friendships are formed, alliances made, and rivalries born in these rough, controlled moments of play. Yet, beneath the structure and discipline, you feel the hunger for freedom. You want to run, to shout, to laugh without fear. You want to be a child without the weight of watching eyes and unspoken rules. But you know that in this society, such freedom is a fleeting luxury. Childhood is a brief interlude before you must step into your defined place. Play is both a release and a reminder, a moment of joy that quickly fades under the gaze of responsibility. Sometimes you catch yourself glancing at the adults nearby, hoping for a sign that your joy is accepted, that your laughter is safe. But most times, their faces are stern, their silence heavy with expectation. You learn to hide your true feelings behind a mask of obedience and control. The games end early, the laughter quiets, and you return to your lessons, your chores, and the serious business of growing up. In this world, play is never truly innocent. It is shaped by the harsh realities of your society, the strict roles you must assume, and the constant pressure to conform. Yet, within those constraints, it remains a vital part of your childhood, a space where you can be just a little bit free, just a little bit yourself, before the world demands you become something else entirely. In ancient Greece, your identity is never truly your own. From the moment of your birth, you belong to your polis, your city-state, and above all, to your family's name and reputation. You might think of yourself as an individual, with dreams and desires, but in reality, your body, your choices, and your future are shaped and constrained by forces far older and more powerful than you could ever imagine. The collective always outweighs the personal. Your existence is woven into the fabric of a society that demands loyalty, honor, and conformity. Your family's reputation is a weight you carry constantly, like a chain invisible but unbreakable. Every action you take reflects not just on you, but on your ancestors and descendants. Success brings glory to your household, but failure disgrace. You learn early that your behavior must align with expectations, for the sake of those who came before you and those who will come after. Your parents, your elders, and your neighbors all watch closely. They judge, they advise, and sometimes they punish to keep you in line. Individuality is a luxury you cannot afford. This belonging extends beyond family to the polis itself. You are a citizen first, a person second. The city-state is a living organism, and you are a part of its body. Your rights, your duties, your privileges, they come from this collective identity. To act selfishly or out of step with communal needs is not just frowned upon. It is seen as a threat to the very order that holds your world together. The laws, the customs, the festivals, they all reinforce the idea that your life is intertwined with that of your city. Your choices are rarely free. Who you marry, what career you pursue, where you live, these are often dictated by family strategy and social expectation. Personal desires are secondary. You might long for a different path, but the pressure to uphold tradition and duty is immense. To deviate risks ostracism, shame, or worse. Your future is a path laid out before you, and your role is to walk it with honor, even if it means sacrificing your own happiness. Your body itself is not your own. As a boy, you are trained, disciplined, and shaped to serve the polis, whether in battle, in civic duty, or in upholding social norms. Your health, your strength, your appearance are tools for the greater good. You learn to endure hardship, to obey commands, and to put the community's needs above your own comfort. This physical shaping is mirrored by the mental and emotional molding that defines your education and socialization. Even your thoughts and feelings are not entirely private. In a society where reputation is everything, rumors and gossip act as a form of social control. You must be careful what you say, whom you trust, and how you present yourself. Your honor can be damaged as easily by words as by actions. To maintain your place in the polis, you learn to guard your inner self and present the face that others expect. Despite these constraints, belonging to the polis also offers a sense of purpose and identity. You are part of something larger than yourself, a culture, rich in history, philosophy, and achievement. You share in communal festivals, religious ceremonies, and political life. Your loyalty to the city-state can inspire pride, unity, and belonging. This collective identity can be a source of strength, even as it demands sacrifice. Yet, the tension between the individual and the collective is constant. You wrestle with the desire to forge your own path against the pull of tradition. You dream of freedom, but you understand that in this world, freedom often means fulfilling your role honorably within the structure imposed upon you. Your life is a negotiation between your own desires and the demands of a society that claims you as its own. In the end, you come to see that your existence is a thread in a vast tapestry woven over generations. You are not merely yourself. You are the legacy of your family, a citizen of your polis, and a keeper of ancient traditions. This realization shapes your identity, your actions, and the way you move through the world. You live not just for yourself, but for those who came before and those who will come after. In the world you know, childhood is fleeting, but for your sister, it ends abruptly and without explanation. One day, she is there, running through the streets, laughing with friends, chasing the warmth of the sun as you do. She plays with wooden dolls, perhaps helping your mother with simple chores, her voice bright and clear. But then, as if caught by a shadow, she changes. The games stop. The laughter fades. She becomes quieter, more withdrawn, like a candle slowly dimming in the dusk. The change is sudden, but shrouded in silence. No one tells you why she no longer joins the other children. No one explains why she stays indoors, hidden behind thick, cold walls where sunlight rarely reaches. The family avoids the subject or speaks in hushed tones that you don't understand. You search your eyes for answers, but find only shadows. The sister you once knew begins to disappear, piece by piece, her presence replaced by absence, her warmth replaced by a chill. Then the day comes when she is gone entirely. Without fanfare or farewell, she is taken away. You learn, though no one offers it directly, that she has been married off to a man much older, a stranger 3 times her age. The arrangement is made without her consent, without your family's explanation to you or her. Marriage, in your world, is not a choice, but a duty, especially for girls. It is a transaction, a sealing of alliances, a fulfillment of social expectations, not a union of love. The man she is promised to might be a wealthy merchant, a respected citizen, or someone your family hopes will bring honor or security. Her youth, her hopes, and her dreams are invisible in the deal. She is expected to leave her childhood behind and step into a role that has been written for her by others. The abruptness of her disappearance leaves a hollow space in your daily life, a silence that echoes through the house and the streets. You remember her face in fleeting moments, the quiet sadness behind her eyes. Before she was hidden away, the small smile she tried to offer you in secret, the brief touch of her hand that said more than words ever could. These memories become precious fragments of a life that was taken from her too soon. No one tells you what happens to her after she leaves. The world beyond the family home is a mystery, filled with rumors and half-truths. You hear whispers of a cold chamber, harsh words, long nights, and heavy responsibilities. Her freedom, her voice, her laughter, all lost to the demands of marriage and obedience. She becomes a stranger not only to you but to herself. This loss is not just personal. It is a reflection of the society you live in, a world where girls are possessions, where their futures are sealed, by others where childhood is a fragile temporary state that ends not with choice but with obligation. Your sister's disappearance is a stark reminder that in this culture, women's lives are shaped by rules they do not write, by forces they cannot control. You struggle with confusion and anger. Why was she taken? Why was no one honest with you? The absence leaves questions unanswered and wounds unhealed. You may hear adults say it is for the family's good, for honor, for tradition, but these words feel hollow. They do not fill the emptiness left behind or explain the loss of a sister, a friend, a child. Her departure changes the rhythm of your home. The space she once filled feels colder, emptier. Family gatherings are quieter, conversations less joyful. You see the strain in your mother's eyes, the silence in your father's face. They carry the weight of this loss, just as you do. but none of you speak openly of it. It becomes a secret grief, shared in silence. As you grow older, the story of your sister shapes your understanding of the world and your place within it. You learn the limits placed on women, the sacrifices demanded of them, and the invisibility they often suffer. You begin to see that her disappearance was not an isolated tragedy, but a common fate for many girls like her. This knowledge stirs a complex mixture of emotion, sympathy, sorrow, anger, and a deep desire for justice. You wonder if things could ever be different, if girls could grow up free to choose their own paths, to play longer, to dream bigger. Her story becomes a silent call for change, even as you understand the strength of tradition and the slow pace of transformation. Her absence also affects your own journey. You feel the fragile line between childhood and adulthood more keenly, knowing how quickly it can be erased. The disappearance of your sister is a reminder that your own time is limited, that the freedoms you enjoy now may soon be taken from you as well. In your quiet moments, you may whisper her name, hope she is safe, and dream of a reunion that may never come. Her story lingers in your heart, a testament to the innocence lost and the harsh realities faced by girls in ancient Greece. It is a shadow that follows you, shaping your view of family, society, and what it means to grow up in a world where you are not always the master of your own fate. In ancient Greece, childhood is a fragile, fleeting season, one that ends not with fanfare or ceremony, but quietly, almost unnoticed. One day, you are simply no longer a child. There is no grand celebration, no marking of the transition with gifts or words of encouragement. Instead, it arrives like a shadow, creeping in while you are distracted, and suddenly, the world demands you step into a new role. Your innocence is stripped away by expectation and responsibility, leaving behind a silence that speaks louder than any farewell. You wake one morning and realize things have changed. The carefree days of play and laughter are gone, replaced by chores, duties, and a relentless pressure to behave as an adult. You are no longer excused for mistakes, no longer indulged for your fears or whims. The world sees you differently now. Your childhood has ended, though no one has told you exactly when or how. It is a quiet, almost invisible shift, but it alters everything. This transition is not gentle. It carries the weight of social expectation, the heavy burden of tradition, and the unspoken rule that you must now uphold the family's honor and contribute to the polis. Your days fill with training, lessons, and tasks once too difficult for you. The freedom to be young, to be curious without consequence, fades as you learn to obey, to endure, and to sacrifice. Childhood, once a time of wonder, becomes a distant memory. You feel the change most acutely in the way others treat you. The adults who once smiled at your childish mistakes now demand perfection. Your teacher's patience thins, your parents' smiles become rare, and your peers treat you as a rival or an equal, no longer a playmate. The protection once afforded to children disappears, replaced by expectations that you manage your own fears, control your emotions, and carry your own burdens. This ending comes with task chores that test your strength, responsibilities that stretch your patience, and challenges that push you to the limits of your endurance. You are no longer allowed to stumble or falter. Mistakes are not forgiven as easily. The mistakes of childhood become the scars of adulthood. You carry these tasks as a silent sentence, a punishment for growing up too fast in a world that demands more than you feel ready to give. The silence that accompanies this change is profound. No one talks openly about the end of childhood. It is a quiet agreement, an unspoken truth, that once you cross this invisible line, you must leave your youth behind without complaint or regret. To mourn your lost innocence is a luxury you cannot afford. Instead, you bury your childhood deep inside, hidden beneath layers of duty and obedience. You begin to understand that childhood was never truly yours to keep. It was borrowed time, a temporary shelter from the harsh realities that await. Now, as the shelter collapses, You face the world exposed, responsible for your actions, your future, and your place in society. The weight of this responsibility presses down, shaping your thoughts, your dreams, and your very identity. Despite this, you carry fragments of your childhood within you, memories of laughter, of games played in the sun, of moments when the world felt kinder and simpler. These memories are bittersweet, a reminder of what was lost and what can never be regained. They are treasures you keep secret, hidden beneath the armor of adulthood. This sudden ending also teaches you resilience. You learn to adapt quickly, to face challenges with courage, and to find strength in duty. You discover that survival in your world depends not on holding on to youth, but on embracing the roles laid out for you, however difficult they may be. Your childhood ends, but your story continues, shaped by the trials you face and the legacy you build. In this way, the end of childhood is not just a loss, but a beginning. It marks the start of your journey into a complex world of power, responsibility, and identity. You step forward carrying both the burden of what you have left behind and the hope of what you might achieve. This transition, though silent and often harsh, is the path to becoming who you are meant to be in the society that raised you. And so, without warning or ceremony, your childhood slips away. You stand on the threshold of adulthood, forever changed by the quiet farewell you never saw coming. It is a passage marked not by celebration, but by the steady, unyielding demands of a world that waits for no one, especially not a child. As we close this journey into what it was really like to be a child in ancient Greece, the picture that emerges is far from the idealized scenes we often imagine. Childhood here was not a carefree paradise, but a fragile, fleeting phase shaped and limited by harsh realities. From the moment you were born, you are not truly your own. Your name, your body, your future belonged to your family and your city. Play was brief and overshadowed by discipline. Freedom was a concept reserved for adults, while you learned to obey, to fear the gods, and to carry the weight of expectations that stretched far beyond your years. The stories of sisters disappearing into marriage, of childhood ending quietly and without ceremony, remind us that youth was not a time for dreaming, but a brief prelude to duty. The innocence you might have hoped for was often stolen, replaced by a relentless push to conform, endure, and survive. For girls, this meant leaving childhood behind early, traded for roles defined by silence and obedience. For boys, it meant harsh training, mental and physical, designed to forge future citizens and soldiers. And for all children, it meant growing up in a world where your life was never truly your own. Yet amid these hardships, there was belonging, a connection to family, to community, and to a culture rich in history and meaning. Even in loss and silence, children were part of a larger story that shaped Western civilization. Their struggles, sacrifices, and fleeting joys remind us how far we have come, and how childhood itself is a fragile gift to be cherished. So as you reflect on these lives long past, consider the resilience required just to grow up in ancient Greece, a world where every step into adulthood was shadowed by obligation, and where the echoes of childhood whispered quietly beneath the weight of history. It is a story of endurance, identity, and the universal human desire to be seen and remembered, even when the world tells you otherwise.